And we continue at 1:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, we've got a new poll from the Public Policy Institute of California on Prop 50. According to this poll, 56% of likely voters say they'll vote yes, 43% say no, and 1% says, oh.
What's crazy is that the spending has essentially stopped. They've canceled the ad buys on both sides, and Newsom came out yesterday and said he's no longer raising money for the yes side. But typically, and Randy, I think we saw this with Prop 1A in the last election, where if your initiative is polling in the 50s but not in the 60s, that's the danger zone. Because the undecideds typically vote no because they stay with the status quo, or they don't vote at all. And even though Prop 1A was polling right around where this one is polling, when we counted the votes, it took many days for that to get over the goal line. It did ultimately, but it wasn't something that was a foregone conclusion.
It was so close that it kept going yes, then no, then yes, then no. It was like a horse race.
But maybe they're seeing something we don't. You still have a little under a week to vote. So if you haven't voted on Prop 50, make sure you get your ballot in, because as of today, only 20% of California registered voters have turned their ballots in. So you still have time. So get that ballot turned in. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the managing editor at Red State and the woman responsible for all of the investigative reporting on the fake doctor Barbara Ferrer all throughout the COVID-19 shutdowns here in California and in Los Angeles County in particular. You can follow her on X at Jen Van Laar and read her online at redstate.com. Jennifer Van Laar, welcome.
So glad to be back.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. So let's start out with Gavin Newsom, because he just did a sit down with Alex Michelson of CNN, who was on this program yesterday, where he said that one of his top priorities is to make sure that people understand his biography accurately. And he said that there's a lot of people out there who think that he grew up as a child of privilege, and that's just not true. And he wants people to understand his real biography, which is that he struggled and he could have become a statistic at any point in time growing up.
Well, there's some things that I actually agree with Newsom on there, and other things that I don't. I don't think he was ever at risk of becoming a statistic unless that statistic meant like a Getty-type drug addict cheating on his spouses, or all of the scandals that we know all the Getty kids and grandkids have had. But it's a little bit nuanced, unfortunately, another word that Newsom likes to use. Was he Getty rich? No. Did he grow up with a little bit more than probably many of the listeners had? Yes. But he was raised in a single parent household. His dad was really not around much when he was a kid. His dad didn't start working as the Getty's trustee until Gavin was already owned and out of the house. So he didn't grow up with, but he did grow up with the Getty's friends, and they took him on trips and exposed him to the kind of lifestyle that his parents could not give him. So, yeah, but the Gettys definitely made him as an adult. So I think that it's good to realize that, no, he didn't grow up. He grew up as the kid that was the friend of the really rich family, but the rich family really helped him become what he is today.
And the Gettys had children who were essentially Gavin's age, and Gavin counted them as peers. And I would imagine that if you have that kind of access, you understand that you have access to wealth and fame and power in the city that you live in, because when you're a child, your world is not as large as it is when you're an adult. That he grew up in Northern California, and in Northern California, the Getty name means something, and he had access to that family, and he had access to children his own age with that name, and that does something to you mentally when you have access to something that you know that many people don't have access to.
Right. Yeah, and the Gettys really were so great to him, continue to be great to him. A lot of people who have friends that are really well off like that, it's not typical that the family is going to help their poor friend do something. They have to see something in that person that they think they're going to benefit from. I don't think it happens altruistically very often, but I think maybe they saw in Gavin some of the same ruthlessness they saw in Gavin's father, because when Gavin's dad he was an appellate court judge at the time, but he helped a different change in trust law go through in California so that Gordon Getty could get a hold of some of this trust money that he wouldn't otherwise be able to get. That's probably a pretty questionable ethical activity by Gavin's dad. So if they saw that same kind of stuff in Gavin and that they could end up benefiting from putting him into some office, I think that was behind their backing of him from the time he was in his early 20s.
Let's talk about the father for a second, because the father was a judge who became someone who worked for the Getty Family Trust, as you mentioned. And if you're a judge, you're a public employee. You're someone who works for the state of California, and you are certainly not Getty rich, but it's always been a white-collar job. It's a six-figure job currently, and
Absolutely.
it's a six-figure job that is, I don't even think in the ones. I think they make more than that. One of my best friends in college is a judge right now. And if you were to ask me, is she phenomenally wealthy? I would say no, but she's a homeowner in Newport Beach. So, I mean, a lot of people can't afford to buy a single family home in Newport Beach, California. But on a judge's salary, she can. I would imagine even if the father and the mother were divorced, there still had to be alimony that was paid. There still had to be child support that was paid. Was this guy a deadbeat dad that just walked out on his bills, or did he give them alimony and child support?
And I need to look into this a little further and see what kind of public records I can find from way back in the 70s. But it seems that there are times that he did not pay because he ran for state senate and went into a lot of personal debt doing so and lost. And the story goes that he then didn't pay for a while because he was trying to get back on his feet, and that he also would just give his money away to friends to help them out. Now, that's what Gavin says, so do we really believe that? And I need to see. It's trust but verify with, well, not even trust. It's just verify with Gavin Newsom. So he did pay some, but what didn't always pay.
What kind of relationship did Gavin have with his father?
They were kind of estranged when he was young. And you can see, if you look at the podcast he did with the NBA guys, and he talks about sports and how when he was playing basketball in high school, how his dad would come watch him, you see his face light up, and you can see that damaged child who still wants dad's approval. And that's when they started becoming closer, is what Gavin said. And just based on his body language, I kind of believe that.
Because the father did speak to reporters. When Gavin was starting his political career, the father would cooperate whenever a newspaper or magazine would write a piece about Gavin. The father, at least in those print pieces, acted like he was dad of the year, and he was proud and over the moon, and this is the apple of my eye, and all of those sorts of things. And Susan Crabtree, who writes for Real Clear Politics, talked about how influential the father was in making Gavin Newsom as a politician. And Susan Crabtree said that it was the father that got Gavin into the University of Santa Clara and the Gettys, and not Gavin's ability to throw a baseball, as he claims. He never played for that baseball team at that university. It was strings that were pulled by the father and the Gettys that got him in there. Certainly the Gettys financed 10 out of his 11 companies. And without that seed money, without that help from the Getty family, none of that would have ever happened.
Well, not just the money, but just the name, and having two of the Getty sons as partners with him in Plumpjack. I mean, someone could give you or I a bunch of money for a business in our early 20s. And unless we had business partners with that kind of name, might not be very successful at it, because who cares if it's just some John Doe on the street. But Susan Crabtree was totally right about the parents, about his dad and the Gettys getting him into the university, but also his dad is the one that got Gavin appointed to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. We know it was Willie Brown who got him his first appointment, I think, as a parking supervisor or committee person. But then it was his dad who approached a state senator and said, hey, there's an opening on this Board of Supervisors. Can you appoint my son? So I think with Gavin's dad, it comes down to he didn't want to look like a deadbeat dad to the press or to the public. So after Gavin started being successful, he even got mad in one interview with the San Francisco Chronicle saying, everyone says it was the Gettys, but no, I helped my son. I made my son. So I think there was a bit of pride going on there for him, and the truth is somewhere between all of that.
And Gavin's official story is that Willie Brown was reading the paper one day and saw a story about Gavin and about his abilities as a businessman. And Willie Brown said, that's a guy I should appoint to something. And not that the father and the Gettys made a request to Willie to appoint Gavin to these boards.
Well, of course, Gavin doesn't want to think that anyone else except himself is responsible for his success. But he definitely did not have a trust fund. He definitely did not grow up wearing those Burberry sweaters or the scarf that he's pictured with. I wouldn't even be surprised if he had hand-me-downs from the Gettys as some of his clothing in that era.
How much of this biography that Gavin wants out there is a way to contrast himself with Trump? Because Trump grew up with wealth, and Trump brags about it. Trump likes the fact that he went to the University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School of Business. He likes the fact that his dad was a developer. He likes the fact that he has access to these exclusive clubs and these beautiful women. And Newsom does not want to be the Democratic version of that. He does not want to be the kid that became successful because of the proximity to the Gettys and the dad putting his hand on the scales. He wants to be the hard scrabble kid who did everything on his own. How much of it do you think is just the framing of him as a candidate, comparing him to Trump as the anti-Trump?
I think that's totally what it is, because he's been in politics his whole life and he's never cared enough. I'm talking about Newsom. He's never cared enough to try to get the true story out there for the last 20 years. So what's different now? That's the only thing that's different now. And even if he didn't grow up in a mansion in Pacific Heights, he still got there pretty quickly. And so it's not going to work.
Gavin Newsom right now is leading in the polls in the Democratic primary. And for the first time, he has acknowledged that he is considering running for president. Why do you think he's changed what he was doing now as opposed to later on? Because before this, whenever he would be asked about it, he would say, I have sub-zero interest in running for president. I have no interest at all. I'm happy to be governor of California. And now all of a sudden he's changed on a dime.
Well, he saw the power vacuum. I mean, no one wants Kamala to run again. There really isn't anyone else that has the it factor, unfortunately, that Gavin Newsom has. So he also wants to tie. He thinks he's going to win the Prop 50 thing, which you were talking about. He probably will. And he wants to be seen as that person who's standing up to Trump and then take that and carry it into the primaries. That's why I think he finally came clean on it.
What is his relationship like with Kamala Harris? Because in her book, she said that when she called him to tell him that she would be running for president, this is when Joe Biden stepped down, he sent her to voicemail and never called her back. Now, I believe her side of the story on this one, but there's a difference between this being true and finding a way to put it in the book. She's putting it in the book to make sure that the world knows that he disrespected her at a critical time. If she's willing to put that in the book, I would imagine that their relationship isn't great.
Yeah, I think it hasn't been great since around the time that it looked like Biden was going to have to drop out, because I think that Gavin wanted to be the one to step in. And you and I talked about that at length at the time, but I think that it's completely done now. They're going to maintain appearances as long as they need to, but one of them will end up taking pot shots at the other and then start dripping intel out to the press.
How long do you give it, given how cutthroat Gavin is? How long do you give it before he starts taking aim at some of these potential Democratic rivals? Not just Kamala, but you have Mayor Pete, you have AOC, you have Pritzker out of Illinois, you have Jennifer Granholm, or not Jennifer Granholm, excuse me, the other one, Gretchen Whitmer out of Michigan, Josh Shapiro out of Pennsylvania. How long do you give it before he starts going after those people?
Whenever he starts feeling like one of them is a threat. Right now they're not, but as soon as one of them feels like a threat to him, then he's going to try to cut him off at the knees.
And what is his style? Is his style to go after them directly? Because if you go back to the last real competitive election that he was in, that was 2018 when he was running for governor, and Antonio Villaraigosa was the threat to him in that primary. And he didn't go after Villaraigosa by name. What he did was prop up John Cox to get John Cox in the general election. So it would be Newsom versus Cox, and then he would win in a walk, which is exactly what happened. But he didn't have to directly go after another Democratic candidate. What do you think Newsom will do when he tries to go after them? Do you think he'll take them on directly? Do you think he'll leak about them privately? A combination of both? How do you think he'll do it?
I think a combination of both, because he can't do the whole propping up another candidate thing necessarily in the Democrat primary, because that's so different than our primaries here. But he could try to prop up someone like AOC that he knows isn't going to really get through. But I think that it'll be that combination, but he's going to start out a little more low key. But we know he has zero problem going at people head on.
But I don't think you can be low key if you're billing yourself as the fighter. If you're billing yourself as the fighter who's willing to be ruthless to win, you have to show your teeth in that primary, and you have to make an example out of someone. Who on that stage do you think he is most likely to go after directly?
I think Shapiro, because I think he's the one who actually is the biggest rival to him.
The governor of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yep. But Pritzker, that's going to be tough because their families are so tied in. You know, he bought that newest home from one of the Pritzkers, and they're so tied in San Francisco society. That one, I think he might have to go a little more low key, just for all of those relationships.
I can't imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, I can't imagine the Democrats nominating Pritzker. First of all, he doesn't look like a president. He doesn't look like someone who could lead the country. He's a guy who's way overweight. He looks like a guy in Chicago who's one hot dog away from having his heart explode. I can't imagine that guy leading the nation. Gavin Newsom looks like a president. He looks like someone who would be on a dollar bill or someone who would have a statue somewhere. But Pritzker just doesn't look that way to me. When I look at that primary, and Shapiro, who is a Jewish candidate, given the current climate within the Democratic Party towards Jews, I can't imagine them nominating a Jewish person right now. I think in a weird sort of way, in the moderate lane, and by moderate I mean just partisan Democrat, I think that Buttigieg is probably the biggest threat. But on the left, it's going to be AOC. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes after a female Latina in a Democratic primary, because you got to be real careful how you do that with that crowd.
You do. And she's not going to listen to any rationality from him, or if he tries to offer her like, hey, drop out and you can be my VP or anything like that, because she's not going to hear that. But I agree with your take on that. And that just leaves Gretchen Whitmer without a lane at all. So it'll be interesting to see how she spins out, or if she just drops out.
Jennifer Van Laar, managing editor at Red State. You can read her online at redstate.com. Follow her on X at Jen Van Laar. Jennifer Van Laar, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we've crossed the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
If you want even more coverage of this show on Governor Gavin Newsom, search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts.
I mean, this is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard.
Whether it's the Apple Podcast app,
And that's a up system.
iHeart,
That is something we are mindful of.
Spotify.
No, I'm not even kidding.
Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
Google it.
You could do a Google on the YouTube.
This is foundational.
You can search for the KABC app, the KSFO app, even the KMJ Now app, because we do an hour of the Fix California Hour, Saturdays at 2 in the Central Valley.
Hagenberger.
There are so many different ways to listen to this radio station anywhere you are, whether you're local or you're traveling.
And increasingly across the globe.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Iron Maiden, the Run for Your Lives World Tour 2026 at the BMO Stadium, September 25th, 2026. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
And right now, it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, this edition involves yet another Rolex watch.
It's happened yet again.
Yet another Rolex watch was stolen in Los Angeles County. NBC4 once is at it again. Here we go.
And we begin tonight at 6 with an NBC4 exclusive, another robbery of a luxury watch. Good evening once again, everyone. I'm Colleen Williams.
And I'm Carolyn Johnson. Michael is off. This latest case happened at a pizza shop in Hollywood, and the watch valued at nearly $80,000.
Okay, who brings an $80,000 watch with them to get a slice?
Well, if that's what you wear, I would imagine it goes wherever you go.
But you might get grease on it.
That's true. Pepperoni.
Tonight, the owner of that pizza shop is speaking only with NBC4. Alex Rozier has that man's story, plus a warning about a string of watch robberies.
Surveillance video shows paramedics leaving Barry's Pizza on Sunset Boulevard around 3 a.m. after LAPD said someone stole a customer's Vacheron Constantin watch valued at $77,000.
Again, not the point, and I always feel for the victim. That's what we do here. Who's paying $77,000 for a watch?
What do you think his nipple rings are worth?
Broke my heart this morning.
Raphael Barry is the owner of Barry's Pizza. He's out of town today, but he said around 2:30 this morning, a customer ran in his cooler chased by a masked gunman who then beat up the customer and stole his watch.
It's insane today. How far these people go really to grab someone's watch. They don't even know if that watch is real or fake.
Oh, they know.
Okay, now according to Little Caesar here, the guy wasn't buying a slice at his pizza joint. He was just trying to avoid being robbed on the street.
He just tried to duck in to avoid because this guy was being chased. Because what happens is these criminals, they're looking out. They've got the binoculars. They see the flashy watch, and they're going to follow you until you're in a vulnerable place.
My nephew was inside the walk-in cooler when the guy was getting mugged. Inside our restaurant. My nephew didn't think he was going to make it last night. He really thought he was going to get shot right there.
And that...
My goodness.
Well, you know what you have to do when that happens?
What's that?
If you're at a round table pizza, you have to take the axe away from the knight, and you got to fight back.
And that is just the latest incident. NBC4 Investigates learned another man had his $500 watch stolen last night on Ventura Boulevard in Studio City.
So they're even going after Apple Watches.
They're going after anything that tells the time.
And NBC4 Investigates also exclusively learned a popular actor who asked not to be identified for his safety had his Rolex and chain stolen Sunday, jewelry valued at $40,000.
Okay, who was that?
Well, pull up TMZ and I'm sure they'll tell you.
So not only is it the Rolexes and this $70,000 watch getting stolen and a $500 watch here, but Now a celebrity got robbed of his watch, but he doesn't want anybody knowing.
Well, a celebrity. What does that mean? Celebrities crave attention. Any celebrity would be more than willing to put their name out there and associate themselves with this story.
And not just his watch, but his chain.
And NBC4 Investigates also exclusively learned a popular actor who asked not to be identified for his safety had his Rolex and chain stolen Sunday, jewelry valued at $40,000. All that on top of an incident in West Hollywood last week. NBC4 broke the news when a gunman attempted to steal a Rolex from a retired professional fighter. The gunman got beat up instead.
But he's out on bail, so don't you worry.
Because LA's going to LA.
There is an alarming trend of individuals targeting community members in public with high-end jewelry.
Mike Bland is a commanding officer with the LAPD's Media Relations Division. He said it's still unknown if these cases are connected.
Some of these cases...
Isn't it worse if they're not?
Well, if they're not, it means everyone in your town is a dirtbag.
Well, and we've seen this before, and we always see what happens here. While most people watch the local news to get informed about what goes on in their community, the criminal element watches the local news to get ideas on what's the hot new crime.
Well, they get a lot of ideas then.
Because what you see is many, many, many people not getting arrested for stealing these watches. And the one guy that did was let out 2 days later on a measly $50,000 bail.
How does that discourage any of this from happening?
It encourages more of it.
In some of these cases, it does appear that the victims are identified in public.
Like you could make an argument that, okay, it's just the nature of economics is why copper wire theft has gone through the roof. But couldn't you also say copper wire theft has gone through the roof because we've been covering it so much all over the place, and every story ends with nobody got arrested for it?
If you're willing to tolerate it, you get more of it.
In some of these cases, it does appear that the victims are identified in public places by the suspects and then either followed to their residences or to other secluded places where they're then robbed. We always encourage everybody to be cautious, especially when they're out in public, and even more so when they're wearing expensive jewelry and watches.
Back at Barry's Pizza.
You know, if you're going to wear that $70,000 watch, you make sure that you're walking around like you're getting followed by the mob.
Back at Barry's Pizza, after today's robbery, the owner hopes city leaders do more to keep his business, customers, and the community safe.
You're in Hugo's district. That ain't happening.
You can wish all you want. That'll never be reality with this crowd in charge.
LA leaders need to do something about it. Everybody's going to leave LA. And I'm one of them because I don't feel like I'm safe, and I don't think my family or my team are safe today to operate and to have a business in LA today.
In Hollywood, I'm Alex Rozier, NBC4 News.
The owner of that pizza restaurant did the interview on the phone because he was out of town. I don't think he's coming back.
We might lose Papa John himself. All right, Randy, it's time to reopen the blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this one reminds us that not even the robots are safe.
I don't know why this happens, except that there's a lot of idiots in Los Angeles, and we don't do anything to punish the idiots. But whenever there's a big gathering, inevitably it gets dark, the gathering turns violent, and jackasses start setting Waymos on fire.
Which is really dumb because at some point the robots are going to kill all of us.
And they'll have good reason for it. For more, here is CBS LA.
Well, bottles thrown at cars and vandalized in downtown LA last night after a skateboarding event got out of hand. CBS LA's Lauren Posen has video of the mayhem and the destruction.
People we spoke with say a second crowd came in looking for trouble.
This wasn't the skateboarders. This was the anarchists pretending to be skateboarders.
Great.
People we spoke with say a second crowd came in looking for trouble, and that's exactly what they got. This was a...
God forbid if the Dodgers win the World Series, all the Waymos are going to get destroyed.
Oh, if the Dodgers win the World Series, there's going to be no way to get from point A to point B. You better buy some walking shoes.
This was a Skateboarding Magazine's sponsored event that ended up going off the rails as soon as the sun went down. A night meant to celebrate skate culture in downtown Los Angeles spiraled out of control. People climbed on top of a Waymo, kicking and pounding on the glass while the crowd cheered them on. Police moved in.
They're the dumbest people in the entire country live in Los Angeles.
Not only do we have the bad actors doing the bad act, but we have a crowd who's cheering them on.
Yay! He burned the Waymo. These people have the same power of voting as you.
Great.
They're probably not voting, but still.
Police moved in near First and Hill Streets, setting up a skirmish line and declaring a tactical alert.
There was a group that kind of detached from the main event, and we noticed this group vandalizing a Waymo, kind of doing their own thing. They had nothing to do with the event.
Sure they didn't.
The people who burn down the city when the Dodgers win the World Series, they're not at the game either.
We just have an atmosphere in Los Angeles, and I feel like this is unique to Los Angeles and maybe Philadelphia. Any kind of gathering gives a certain portion of the crowd license to destroy everything.
Is that what it's going to take to get me to root for Canada to win something?
Sergio Ricon says it was a skateboarding event called Halloween Hellbomb. He brought his younger siblings to it Saturday night.
So it's an annual event where Thrasher Magazine hosts a skating competition around Halloween time where skaters come out dressed up in their favorite costumes, looking their best.
Police say people hurled bottles and broken skateboard parts at them.
The world of skating hasn't seen this much violence since Tonya Harding.
Different kind of skating.
And one skateboarder plowed into a line of officers.
The event organizers did.
But those guys weren't part of the skateboarding crowd. Those were the anarchists.
I see.
The event organizers did tell us, hey, the event's over. We advise that you guys leave before anything else escalates. We no longer have any sort of part to do or have nothing to do with what was happening.
At this point, we should all know better. Los Angeles cannot handle outdoor events.
Which is why the Olympics are going to be perfect for us.
Indoor events, you can control who comes in, you can control who gets out. But when you have an event outdoors, inevitably, the jackasses who want to light everything on fire come out, and they know they're not going to get arrested for it.
Video shows officers using less than lethal tactics to disperse the crowd.
I kind of predicted it. Closed off street in Los Angeles, man. I was walking up. I'm like, there might be a riot tonight.
I think I'm going to look on Zillow during the break. I got to get the hell out of this city.
Los Angeles, man. I was walking up. I'm like, there might be a riot tonight.
The event may have ended in chaos, but Ricon says it didn't take away from the spirit of what it was meant to be.
Again. No, it did.
If this is the spirit, it might be time to find a new hobby.
Of what it was meant to be.
Again, it was a good time. We got there as soon as the event started. So we saw it, from the beginning to the end. It was really cool, just seeing all these friendly people, in their costumes, celebrating Halloween and skate culture.
LAPD says no arrests were made.
John, how does every single story in LA County end?
They could just tape that and just attach it to every single one of these blotter entries.
LAPD says no arrests were made.
Not even the people that threw skateboards at the police got arrested.
No, because this is what Karen Bass wants. Karen Bass does not want any of these people arrested. And then she's going to say, well, I know you say that streets are chaotic, but if you look at the statistics, look at how few arrests were made.
It is documented. The videos all over social media of several people setting a Waymo on fire. No arrests for that?
Nope.
LAPD says no arrests were made and that officers did document all the vandalism that took place. Reporting in downtown Los Angeles, Lauren Posen, CBS LA.
Johnny and I just want to reiterate for our future robot overlords, we were always on your side.
Nope. Never attended a skating event in my life.
We've been pro Waymo, so don't come after us.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Ken writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com on the watch robbery. Hey, John and Randy, how good of a tipper for a slice of pizza do you think the guy with the $77,000 watch is?
Well, I think he gave him $0 because he didn't buy any pizza. He was just trying to hide out in the cooler.
Didn't work.
Trying to blend in with the anchovies. Let's go to Jonathan in Los Angeles. Jonathan, hello.
Hello again. Well, I'm not that, sad that a Waymo was set on fire. I get it that it's crime and the whole, the riot kind of concept. But, I do believe possibly that Google will be able to afford a car getting set on fire with the money that they got. I think they're going to be okay, John. So, and I'm not a Waymo supporter. I don't like the idea of the autonomous stuff, but
you're okay with a car getting set on fire?
Well, I mean, I agree it's crime. I wouldn't have wanted it to happen. I think that it shouldn't happen, but I'm saying I think Google's going to be able to afford it. It doesn't really make me that sad that Google, an entity that can easily afford a loss of a car, is, I'm not that upset. If it was some other person in Los Angeles, I'd be very upset. Somebody that can afford it, somebody that shouldn't have their car. And neither should Waymo have their car set on fire. I'm just saying that, I think it's with the money that's being moved with this organization, I don't think it's going to be that bad. But so why, Randy? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that eventually the AI that controls the Waymo is going to get a grudge going, and then you're going to want to make sure you're on the right side of history.
Okay, we'll see if that answer sticks. I don't know what to say to that answer, but I'm just saying it is bad. I didn't want it to happen. They should have more control of the crowd, things like this. Nobody should be doing that to somebody else's property. But it's at the same time, it's just an autonomous car. They got money. They're going to get another one. There's a lot of.
What's your beef with autonomous cars? Because the only thing I hate more than driving is parking. And if they can make it so I don't have to do either one of those things, I'm a happy camper.
Well, I don't believe that the on the days that something could go wrong, I don't want to be around an autonomous car that doesn't have a human being in it. To me, it's extremely dangerous. I personally don't believe the science. I've seen too much, and I personally don't want them on the road. I don't care what the money is. I want a human being behind a car, personally.
Have you seen how some human beings drive?
I agree, Randy. I mean, it is horrible, but there's other ways to prevent this stuff. And this gets into the bag of tricks of the LA City Council and LA Unified.
All right. We're out of time, but we get the idea. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Here's something else that autonomous cars don't have: body odor. And they also don't want to talk to you about their ex. I happen to like them a lot.